This is a full review of the BMW X4, today as the top sports version, the BMW X4 M competition. Please join us here on Autogefühl, your #1 resource for in-depth car reviews and your #1 community to discuss cars, with Thomas, here in exterior, interior and the sporty driving experience. As you know, everything in full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! Now to the front. Well, starting with the X line, with the normal BMW X4, we get LED as standard headlamps then, and optional adaptive LED lights. This is the highest option then. Beautiful daytime running light signature then in this case also. The X4M has this bigger front double kidney, also with a dark or black design and with the vertical fins right there, X4M badge. Also more impressive here and high gloss black in this lower area over a very strong stance in the road. But already as normal X4 looks stronger than before in this new generation. This striking color here for the day, by the way, is called Toronto Red. 4.76 m, 15'6" or 187 inches is the length of the BMW X4. And usually it comes then starting with 18-inch wheels. But here the X4M competition would go up to 21-inch wheels. However, today we have 20-inch wheels with winter tires mounted. Therefore, the tires look a little bit bigger also. Let's see also what that changes in the driving behavior. Then here the top model, the competition package usually includes a little bit more extra features always for exterior and interior actually. And here we have these side design elements, but they're just design elements by the way, so there's no function in this case. You know, with some BMW models they have this Airstream or air curtain function then in the front, but here it's not the case. Here we have contrasting black mirrors and they have very aerodynamic, beautiful design. Then black all around the frames right here to make it a little bit sportier, and this X4 new generation has a little bit more elegant roofline here, and especially how it forms then to the rear. Strong shoulder, and it will get even more interesting in the rear. Of course, big difference, X3, X4 is this falling roofline, you know, which has this sporty appeal, but then of course also some practicability disadvantages. Really depends on what you like. And of course the M model here comes with an M Sports suspension. The new generation of the BMW X4 comes here with these new horizontal tail lamps, and I think they're really more modern and more beautiful. Overall, the rear is a little bit sleeker then. But then again, the X4M competition adds here this black rear wing, together with a massive diffuser in the lower part, honeycomb structure right here, and then the sports exhaust. 1, 2, 3, 4. What do you think about the sound you heard so far? So what we have here today is the X4M competition, 3-liter inline 6-cylinder, 510 horsepower, 4.1 seconds is the acceleration figure, 0 to 100 kilometers an hour or 62 miles an hour. Wow, that's of course pretty impressive. The non-competition model is at 480 horsepower, 0.1 seconds slower, if you can say so. And then this 3-liter 6-cylinder is also available as the M40i with 360 horsepower. That's totally fine. And also pretty cool engine pick. Probably I would rather go for this one for a better price-performance ratio. And then of course you also have the 2-liter 4-cylinders, also on the petrol side. And then diesels, you also have the choice between 2-liter 4-cylinder and 3-liter 6-cylinder. Interesting here of course that we have this additional carbon fiber bar, stability bar, that gives more stiffness to the chassis. Now let's take a look at the interior. Here carbon fiber inserts for this M competition model, very beautiful. And also other than that, instead of the doors, soft touch, everything from a great quality. Here you also get these M competition entry badges. Then steering wheel with the distinct M mode buttons. You can program them what they are supposed to do actually to give the car a little bit sportier touch. And then that left side here for the cruise control, right side to start the voice recognition system or for the volume, for example. Then the X4M only comes with animal skin seats. You can see these sports seats here, they look amazing, really cool as for the form. And here also with the M competition you get these illuminated badges inside. Well, for the base X4 you also get more sustainable or animal-friendly materials. In Europe, for example, fabric and the fabric mixed seat, and especially in the US you get the Sensor-Tech in black and beige. So especially for the sportiest versions, I would have wished some microfiber or fabric seat mix, because then you don't slide on them too much also while driving sporty. Now getting inside, of course, as always with a shoe tap, get the interior clean. Well, here the seating position is upright, as you know from the SUV, but it's a little bit sportier if you have compared it to the X3, because the A-pillar is flatter here. But if I put the seat in the lowest position with 1m86 or 6'1", there's still enough headroom left, plenty of. Well, it will be less when you have a panoramic roof, this one here without one. I usually put the seat a little bit higher then again to have a more upright seating position right there. Steering wheel can be put up and down and in and out, and it's a very smooth process as well. So for these additional sports seats, they are still somewhat comfortable. However, the base sports seats in the X4 will be more comfortable, as they leave you a little bit more room to play with. These are of course a little bit more caging in, unless you really like that. Now to the interior, soft touch material here on the dashboard, beautiful. Then you have the carbon fiber inserts here for the sporty models. That's also really cool. You still have a separate climate unit with this, turning knobs, and I really like to have that to be able to control it somewhat manually. Then in the lower part, either it's being closed or you open it, X4M competition badge in this competition package. Inductive charging pad for your smartphone. In this case makes sense because we also have the Apple CarPlay wireless. Then adaptive cup holders and the special shifting lever. So interesting is that for the driving mode you put it to the right side, or for the sports mode once again, neutral and then rear. So it's a little bit imitating as it would be manual. So the top part here is for changing transmission modes, and on the left side you also have different settings here. For example, all for the suspension when you want to put that manual, So a lot of different variations. And on the right side still this turning pressing knob. You can also control this touchscreen from below, for example, while driving. The cover here, very well attached. And if you open the armrest, some more space underneath with another USB-A charger. The second one is in the very front. Then with the steering wheel, we have these M buttons right there. You can set them as separate customizable hotkeys. You have shifting pedals here, which feel quite good. And then the digital instruments, they are, let's say, half digital, half analog, because the outside parts there, the aluminum, let's say, rings, they are analog, but on the inside it's all digital. And then we can also rev it up, for example, here. Yeah, here we go. Rather a classic style, but I somehow like it. And when you turn them off, it looks like this. And when I then open the door as well, then you can see that they actually disappear. We have this operating software here at the moment, but the latest one is supposed to be coming as well. But this one already has the Apple CarPlay in a wireless way. Let's listen to this optional Harman Kardon sound system, which is really a nice surround sound. Really like that. And once again, they always do that with the manufacturers. They put the bass in the settings all the way up that say, oh, it sounds even more sophisticated. And then I search the equalizers and turn the bass all the way down, because I want to hear the true sound system. Very interesting. So here the main menu once again. Actually pretty decent fuel economy overall for this very sporty car. Let's take a look at the GPS right here. So also pretty responsive, I like that, and the GPS destination software is also good. And since this one here is not the one with the natural voice input, It still works, however, when I put the voice input and then say like a destination, this still works. So some basic functions already are there, but not with a natural voice input, let's say. And camera-wise, when you put in the rear of your camera, then there we go. Also with the helping lines right there and fake draw me from above. And then there's also a separate camera button. For example, you can change it around. This one here then, for example, with the very wide angle, pretty impressive. Or then back to this view again. And here you can see how you can configure your M settings. For example, right there, what you want to have it as for the M1 button. Want to have the DSC, how the X drive is behaving, for example, engine setting, chassis. So you can also, for example, put the chassis to a comfortable mode, but the throttle and to a very aggressive input, however you want to like it. Yay! And BMW wings here as the top lighting. I always like to see that. Do you fancy them as well? As for the rear, there's also soft touch at the rear inside of the doors, so that's good quality-wise. These sport seats here are quite voluminous, therefore they don't also leave too much legroom. Here, you see, it's still okay for 4 tall adults, no problem, but not more. And if you compare, for example, X3 or X4 to the X1, the BMW X1 has the same legroom here in the rear because no 6-cylinders in that one, shorter front hood, but here in the X3 or X4 we do have the 6-cylinder possibility. That's why we also have the X4M here today. Well, headroom wise, I do exactly fit here. I can put a hand over my head still. So although you have this falling roofline, it still works with the X4. Well, the rear seating bench is not the most comfortable one, so to say, also pretty short, but I think it's still okay. Here also interesting that you have the possibility here with this button actually to change it a little bit, so you can put it a little bit more back or a little bit more to the front, change the angle of the back part. You can already also flip the seats from here. Other than that, here with the competition model, we also have these beautiful stripes at the seating, at the seat belt. Yes, of course, seating belt. Well, and then there's the Isofix here at the outside and cup holders. Adaptive also with these rubber. And ski hatch. And last but not least, the middle unit here. You can also get a separate climate unit here and another 12-volt power supply. Well, you flip the logo here to open it. 525 to 1430 liters. So that's a little bit less in liter figure than with the BMW X3, but just a little bit because the liter figures are measured actually below this top cover here, which you can also remove, by the way, better with 2 hands, of course. Then the trunk here, as for the luggage size, you see here, fits very well, no problem. You can also reach over like this from here to flip the seats. That's possible because there are no separate releases right here. And also some measurements for you. So the normal trunk length up to the seats upright is here about 1 meter. The same also goes for the trunk width, a little bit more actually, and the height here up to the cover is about 50 centimeters, so overall good dimensions. Just when you want to transport some very, very high things here in the rear, that would be a limiting factor if you compare it to the X3. And here in length, this is almost 1 meters and 80. Well, there's one thing here when you are in a basement garage, because then you see how high this one is opening and you have to pay attention that it doesn't hit the, the top ceiling of the basement garage. So I'm not really sure. I have to put it against the BMW X3, but especially here then also with the top wing and so on, that can actually be a problem. Last but not least, what about child safety? Yeah, I think that's still quite okay. Welcome, my friends, to the BMW X4 M, Thomas's active driving lounge. We'll pull it here with the first M button, everything in the sports gauges. I'll reduce the speed a little bit for you that you can get more of this acceleration. We start at about 50 kilometers an hour, so like at 25 miles something, and let's accelerate out. That's 200 kilometers an hour or 125 miles. Very impressive. Very even acceleration from this all-wheel drive. Wow. Smooth but yet very powerful. Nice engine sound. This 3-liter 6-cylinder engine is superb. Not only in the M version here, but also in the normal base versions. What a great engine. And here, of course, delivering even more performance, being tuned from the software. But it can also be quite efficient as well. More to that later. Wow. And car is still very stable here. Of course, not as stable as a sedan or something would be. So here I have to fight it a little bit. Here we go. And also with winter tires, you know. So when you're driving these high speeds with winter tires in an SUV, you maybe saw also that the car was, you know, moving just a little bit more as a sedan would do with some, especially with summer tires. So of course, always pay attention to that. In this sports mode, also the suspension is a little bit stiffer than. You can all individualize it as we shown you in the interior part. You want to go down there, guys? There we go. Peugeot 206cc. Funny little car, right? Not being built anymore for ages, but definitely really funny. Yeah, this hardtop construction was also a tricky thing. So you can always go back to the comfort mode again. Then a little bit easier to roll here just, but wait a minute, that's a tunnel. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I really love electric vehicles. I have no problem when the car does not have any sound, but I mean, when we have a sound here now, why not listen to it? At least when we're here in the tunnel and we are not annoying anyone, you know, sleeping in their garden or something. So in the valley, you know, in the village, next to the neighbors, I always, you know, try to pay as much respect as possible. Here on the motorway, then you can let it fly a little bit more. So now again back to 100 kilometers an hour, and also noise insulation wise, here motorway speeds really good. They've worked on that in this new generation, pretty amazing. Nothing to complain about. It's also actually suitable for longer motorway drives. No problem with that. And so the suspension setting here in the M, I mean, it's an adaptive suspension, so you can switch it around a little bit, but I'm a little bit more happy with that here than with the BMW X4 M or the X6M. That was a little bit stiffer from the whole setup, but again, could also be a real thing. Soon going to talk more about that. First of all, let's accelerate it out once more. Well, and here we go. Whoa. Now we hit high speeds. Yeah, you feel the winter tires definitely. They're swinging a little bit too much. And again, the winter tires are also not laid out to have like these high speeds. And you do realize it's an SUV. So yeah, I mean, it's impressive how sport they could get it. But then again, at some point you can't also deny the genes for that. So a true sports car would be a little bit calmer than here in this high speed corner, definitely. But still a lot of sporty fun you're having here. These solar panels almost look like a speed camera, but there's no limited speed here, not yet. Soon there will come some speed limiting, and we can use that for another brake from 200 to 120, not hammering it completely, but here, you know, wow, those brakes really hammer it in, but then maybe you saw again how I was, you know, correcting a little bit. So back to the normal driving mode again. Whew. Yeah, that was quite speedy already. So I can just conclude from this sporty driving part here, awesome acceleration, and especially here with winter tires, you have to be, you know, paying attention. Winter tires plus SUV does swim just a little bit, so can't deny the fact that sedans are better as for the sports performance. But again, impressive what they've done here with an SUV, how sporty they can actually make that feel. Yeah, that's also how city driving is sometimes, you know. Also Jaguar F-Type, soon also Jaguar F-Type facelift here in Autogefühl. Well, yeah, I mean, you can also drive actively in the city. A little bit, of course, you have to be calm, watch your cyclist, don't exceed the maximum speed inside the city. But accelerating out in a sporty manner from the traffic light, yeah, sometimes why not? That's why we are also still car enthusiasts, you know, like sentient car enthusiasts, but yeah, somehow it's still in the blood. Well, and the thing is here, also inside the city, I can, for example, use the cruise control and keeps up the speed then as I want it. And I can also activate or deactivate the lane keeping assist, but that wouldn't be, you know, a big factor when driving here in the city. The thing is here, I was starting in sports mode, but usually I would go back to the normal mode, because here in the city I want to drive a little bit calmer. Unless the next traffic light is on red, for example, I can go back to the sports mode again, just using this shifting lever. Yeah, I mean, we can also then change the different transmission modes. So in this case, when I'm switching to the sports mode, it goes also a mode up in the transmission mode. Well, when you go back, it really kicks you in there. But you know, the normal transmission mode is usually also just fine and already quite sporty. And there's really so much things you can do then. Here again, then we know with this M button, which you can individualize, or then the second M button, which you could set to an even harsher tone, but most of the time it's not really that relevant in the city. Especially also, I would leave the suspension on comfort. Yes, you know, the suspension is adaptive, but still it is of course stiffer and rougher than with the normal X4 cars. However, I do feel, maybe it's the combination also 21-inch and summer tires versus 20-inch and winter tires, which we have here. So you can also get the summer tires 21-inch, that's the stiffest combination then. But here then, riding 20-inch with the winter tires, that is better to sustain. And I also had it with the BMW X4 and X4M, where we had the biggest wheels mounted that were available for that one. And then also with summer tires then in the US. And that was such a harsh ride. So I feel that this ride here is a little bit better. I think it shows again that you should not always go for the biggest wheels. Yeah, I mean, they look kick-ass, definitely, yeah. But again, if riding comfort is any concern to you, you would rather leave it with the little bit smaller wheels. So the cool thing is, with this 3-liter 6-cylinder we have here, you can also drive it in a calm way. We also know this engine from non-M models, and it's a very good overall engine. It can also somewhat be driven in an economic way, if you want so. So when you have cruise control, motorway and so on, you can score some 10 liters on 1 kilometers, or 23 mpg US, 28 mpg UK with this vehicle here. That is possible, as long as you don't really use that throttle. And that's, I mean, the good thing about this 3-liter 6-cylinder, it's actually for a petrol engine a quite efficient one. Will be even better, of course, in the fuel economy figures when you're not in this M version, because you're not tempted to use it all the time, all the way. And you know, maybe also you experience that here together with me in the city. It can indeed also be driven in a calm way. Here also I feel that the steering setup is really great, and it's so much better than in the BMW 3 Series. That's again, yeah, maybe you've heard me complaining about that quite a lot of times with the 3 Series. I don't understand. Here, the SUVs, which are built in Spartanburg in the US, they don't have any dead zone area here, you know, in the low degree angles, but the 3 Series has. Why? I don't know. Here in the SUVs, especially in the compact SUVs, perfect steering setup, feels natural, direct enough, not too much work on the steering wheel, so it's a very great steering setup they did find here. The X4, of course, has a little bit less overview than the X3, so, and this one here, A-pillar is flatter, so you feel already sportier. It usually also has a sportier setup when you directly compare base versions. So it really depends on what's your preference there, whether it's X3 and X4, definitely. But it has such a good and neutral balance handling. It doesn't feel too heavy, doesn't feel too big. That's of course also an advantage if you compare, you know, X4 versus X6. So even if you say like, oh, you know, don't care about the money and so on, if you want a little bit sportier, better handling, then you would go for the smaller vehicle. And of course, you don't have so much problems like parking in and out. if you live in an area where space or parking space is no problem anyway, well, you know, then it can also be an X5, especially considering the price we have to pay here for this very vehicle. And you remember, you know, you can easily get a nicely spec'd X4 or like 50K something. That's possible, you know, it's okay, you know, euros or dollars. This one here, as it stands here right now, overall, 108,000 euros. Seriously, for an X4? Come on, really? Yeah, we had a lot of fun in the acceleration, and also the brakes are working very well, definitely. Always have to react to these traffic lights. But then again, no, I don't think the price is really justified for that, you know. Because already with the normal version here of the 3-liter 6-cylinder engine, the non-M version, you can have a lot of fun. It's no problem, yeah. But that's quite often the times with these high-spec versions. By the way, when you're standing still here, we also realize that very good noise insulation here. That's also a step up the game here, considering the previous generation, this generation. And if you ask me, the biggest difference is really this feeling of refinement here in this new generation. If you compare it to the previous one, also interior build quality and so on, this is the thing I think that that matters most. And when I want a little bit more acceleration, either I use the S shifting mode, not necessarily going all to this sports gauge, or I shift back myself here with the shifting pedals, and then you already can get a nice punch. And even this punch, since the all-wheel drive is really rear-wheel biased, holding the right pedal, by the way, to go in the automatic shifting mode again. I mean, I was getting on the motorway, hitting the throttle with a little bit lower gear, and everything, all these stability systems were in place. And even in this situation, I felt, yeah, it's predominantly rear-wheel driven. Not all, of course, since also power is transported to the front wheels, but the rear got a little bit lighter. It didn't slide out or something, but just got a little bit lighter. That's, you know, something you feel, and you know, when you have just a feeling for your vehicle, you know, that's it. So very interesting, very sporty, very cool, and I think it's always pretty amazing how sporty you can make such an SUV that you sit still upright and more comfortable than you would be in a sedan or something, but still can have this sporty experience. Of course, a sedan, due to the lower center of gravity, will always be sportier than as for this, and you know, the agility aspect. But this is always, you know, this is still totally fine. And again, when you, for example, as for me, I mean, just from the visual part, I find sedans more beautiful. But then again, when you're a little bit taller and you tend to get lower back pain in some very low-sitting cars, then of course the SUVs do help you with the upright seating position. And that's why I always appreciate SUVs as well, because they give me an upright seating position and never have any back pain in them. Unless the seats are like very, very badly made or something. And you know, that rarely happens. Glad for that. So here now again in the motorway and stuck a little bit in traffic, then the speed to the car in front of me, or distance to the car in front of me, is being kept. I can also set it here on the steering wheel if I want to increase or decrease distance. And then there's this lane keeping assist, which I can activate or deactivate. And let's see if it's also reacting to these yellow lines here. Sometimes, you know, because they're all rather programmed on white lines. Yeah, see, that's just the thing again. And it's not really like, not sure what I've done there, but it's like not very accurately done. So let's exit these yellow lines and get to the white lines and see how it does there. I guess it will do a little bit better. Always a pleasure, by the way, to look through these side mirrors, you know, the especially aerodynamic design of the side mirrors, and that's just an emotional aspect when you're driving this vehicle. Also when being in traffic, looking at the side mirror like, that's fancy, that's cool. Yeah, you know, those are the things we look forward to in life, right? Yeah, if someone non-car enthusiast will watch it and think that this guy is absolutely crazy. So, and now on the white lines again, we can also take a look at the blind spot monitor. Those cars there will overtake us. These cars will overtake us. There it is. Not sure what he was waiting for, but there it is with the blind spot monitor, yellow triangle right there. Pretty helpful feature. And then it's also tested here now with the lane keeping assist. Of course, always keep your hands on the steering wheel. That's how it's meant to be actually. So a little bit reducing of the distance now. But see here, the car is being kept in the lane, and it's been done in a quite subtle way actually. So it's not like always like we had it recently, for example, in the Ford Kuga, the new generation, that was a little bit too nervous here. But this is here like a very smooth process definitely in doing that. And one more overtaking for today, just for you. Wow. Yeah, and that's uphill. Wow, so effortless again. Really cool. And again, even though I had the lane assist in now, this active lane keeping assist, I could easily get rid of it, so to say. So there was a good transition between handling the car myself again. And that's, I think, again, pretty decent. So overall, once again, very impressive what they put here on the road. What do you think? And now to the conclusion for today with the BMW X4 in general, and here especially the BMW X4M. Well, this new generation has massively stepped up the game into the interior build quality. That's the most significant change when you compare previous and the new generation. The exterior is a little bit more modern, and especially the rear has a better design now. I think looks a little bit sleeker than before. Well, the offering of space on the interior is not the best, but somehow also okay. Again, the interior build quality is good. Sadly, they do not offer any animal skin alternative for the M version, but in the normal versions there are European market either fabric seats, and on the US market also Sensatec seats available, which are more sustainable than. Infotainment system wise, of course not the most upgraded version here yet today, but the upgrade is also in planning, I heard, when you get a newer model for that. That you also have the option. And X4 versus X3, well, the thing is here really, as for the design, one disadvantage is of course when you're in a basement garage that it doesn't open that wide for that it opens too wide actually with the X4, and the X3 stays a little bit lower. As for the rear hatch, that could be a problem. And of course, if you want to load in higher things, then the X3 has an advantage. This one here, the sportier approach, and also when you sit on the inside, you always feel that a little bit. Well, and then the X4M here today, really sporty of course. The 3-liter 6-cylinder is a great engine. It can be driven, as I said earlier, also in a way, in an economical fashion. But then of course a sportier tune here today, so impressive what they could do with an SUV. But then again, it's still a higher SUV than a sedan, and especially when you drive it with winter tires, it's, in comparison, a little bit more swimming like the sedan on the road, but still pretty cool how sporty you can drive even though you are in this mid-size SUV. What do you think about the X4 in general, and especially to the X4M? Please leave us your comments, and see also at other X4 and X3 reviews. We'll link these down in the video description, and also to some of the competitors. Thank you so much for tuning in today, guys.